This week, you may become aware of the distance between what you know and the life you have arranged around not fully honoring that. You may already see the truth of a relationship, of a pattern, of what is no longer working, or what you want to create, claim, or become. But seeing it is one thing, and bringing your life into alignment with what you see is another. On July 25th, we entered the second movement of our core process, align. And at the gate of perception, align relates to what I call worthy perception. The moment when you decide that what you perceive is worthy of being honored before anyone else validates it. Last week, we stood at the turn from noticing to acting, the courage to take your knowing seriously enough to move on it without waiting for permission. This week, the sky asks us to deepen that act. I'm Karen Ledesma, and this is the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap, a weekly astrology transmission from the Chalice Path. I'm here to help you relate to astrology not as prediction, but as orientation, a living map for consciously participating in your life, especially through the initiation of midlife. Midlife is not a crisis, it is an initiation. It's the season where old identities dissolve, old patterns stop working, and the body, psyche, and soul begin course correcting us towards self-trust, inner authority, and embodied feminine wisdom. In this work, Venus is our organizing field. Her 19-month cycle of descent and ascent offers us a roadmap for tracking what we are being invited to release, reclaim, and embody as we become more fully ourselves. Each week we ask, what are we being invited to attune to, align with, refine, and allow? These four movements are the core process, the path we walk through every gate of the Venus cycle. Currently, Venus is on her ascent, the rising, reclaiming half of her journey. And this lunar month, we are at the sixth gate of that rising, the gate of perception. At the heart of this gate, you are not simply taking your sight back, you are reclaiming a way of seeing shaped by everything the descent revealed. What you released, what you retrieved, what you can no longer pretend not to recognize. And because we are in Venus as other territory, the perception you reclaim here is also what allows you to meet reality and other people as they actually are, not through the lens of fantasy, fear, or longing, but through direct encounter with what is real. The week opens still inside a threshold. On Sunday, Saturn stationed retrograde in Aries, and a stationing planet moves so slowly that its weight stays concentrated for days. Saturn will be moving retrograde until December, reviewing how we start things, how we assert ourselves, where we may have rushed when patience would have served. And at this gate, Saturn concentrates the question of responsibility. Can my life sustain the identity and actions that my perception is inviting me to take? That same day, the lunar node shifted into Aquarius and Leo, an 18-month chapter that will shape the coming eclipses and much of the next Venus cycle. The North Node in Aquarius pulls us away from applause and approval towards vision, community, and the wider view of the collective. The guiding question becomes, how do I contribute to the larger field without disconnecting from my own creative authority? The sun's opposition to Pluto today, the 27th, intensifies all of this, bringing at least 3 days of Plutonian intensity. Pluto in Aquarius reveals what shapes identity and belonging below the surface: the fear of exile, the need for approval, the power structures inside a relationship or a community. Pluto's questions are piercing ones. What are the conditions of and for surrender? Are you ready to integrate the shadow? What identity, role, strategy, or form of belonging is ready to be composted because it can no longer accompany you forward? Then, midweek, three powerful events converge. Venus squares Mars, the Sun joins Jupiter in Leo, and the Aquarius full moon rises opposite them. First, Venus squares Mars. This square closes a long underworld saga between them. They met last in January, hidden behind the sun, Venus in her underworld. Now, Mars holds the morning sky and Venus the evening sky. Unseen to each other, yet in this exact relationship. Venus is what we value. She represents our fundamental relationship to self, to other, to life itself as a sacred partner. Mars is embodied action, our courage, agency, and forward movement. When they square, you might feel friction between what you see and value and how you are being called to move through the world. Their square asks, how has what was learned in the dark changed the way the feminine and masculine now relate? Now that Venus is rising, your action gets to come from somewhere new, not from the old trauma-based reflex, not from abandoning yourself to keep things smooth, but from a body that has learned to stay, from a body that has reclaimed her worth in the underworld. In the ascent, we maintain our center and allow the world to meet us, rather than rushing out to fix, meet, or change the world as a means of staying safe. Here, within the gate of perception, the question is not simply whether you can perceive what is true. It is whether your action can serve what you know. Can your inner masculine move in a way that honors your inner feminine rather than overriding, dismissing, or abandoning her? Can your doing protect what your knowing has revealed? Wednesday morning, the full moon rises in Aquarius just after the sun meets Jupiter in the heart of Leo, the most expansive meeting of the season. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. And in Leo, this enlarges creative authority, visibility, joy, and the courage to occupy one's own life. So something in you might be asking for more room, a larger expression, a more wholehearted commitment. Then the moon reaches fullness at 6 degrees Aquarius, opposite the sun and Jupiter in Leo. Some call this vision the vision quest moon. Of all the mystery schools, Aquarius asks us to climb the widest possible view, the eagle's vantage, the witness behind the ordinary eye. Aquarius asks, can you rise high enough to see your life from a wider perspective? Can you see beyond the identity you have been protecting? Can you make contact with your wise and future self who has lived through this threshold and align her vision with your own? The Leo sun brings the essential polarity. The widest vision must still be lived through the singular heart, while Aquarius expands consciousness. Leo commits to the particular life that is yours. The task is to see the larger pattern without abandoning the woman living inside of it. Because Pluto remains close to this full moon, there is a warning built into this energy. The vision quest must include the shadow. The wide view cannot become spiritual distance. The objective witness cannot be used to avoid grief, anger, desire, or the consequences of change. The full moon illuminates both the vision and what stands between you and its embodiment. This configuration also still activates the Jupiter square to Chiron in Taurus. If an old wound of worth is touched this week, that too belongs to what is coming to light. And so, if the shadows are part of what comes to light this week, let them come. As they do, practice one discernment. What in you is a trauma-based flinch? And what can you allow to be genuinely illuminated by your regulated nervous system? The flinch grabs, contracts, reaches for reassurance. Notice how your regulated seeing is quieter than that. It can hold what it sees, even the shadows, even the old wounds, without collapsing. With the nodes newly entering Aquarius and Leo, the full moon may offer us an early glimpse of this big evolutionary territory opening up before us. The August 12th eclipse is already approaching, so this larger story is turning. Pay attention to what you see this full moon from this higher vantage point. On Saturday, August 1st, Venus in Virgo squares Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius. While Venus in Virgo seeks discernment, integrity, and right relationship, Lilith in Sagittarius refuses a truth that has been domesticated into more acceptability, refuses to make herself smaller so that the truth is easier to receive. So this weekend might reveal where you confuse your refinement with making your truth more palatable. And Sunday, the asteroid Vesta, keeper of the devoted inner flame, meets Eris, the truth that arrives as disruption. Together, one instruction: stay devoted to your own seeing, even when it might disturb the frequency in the room. Sunday is also our third touchstone of this lunar cycle. The moon opposes Venus, and this week's touchstone is refine. At this gate, we can call this our wise seeing. Wise here doesn't mean certain, it just means seasoned. Seeing that has been tested, met its feedback, and returned to itself. The opposition shows you more clearly. This is the full light of the pattern seen, where your perception held and where your old override may still have taken over. The invitation is not to take this as failure, but feedback. Refinement is always the willingness to receive what reality reveals without shame. Where did your perception hold? Where did fear take over? What deeper truth is now becoming visible? The practice this week is simple. Notice the moment you doubt what you sense, the small flinch, the shutdown of your perception, the gaslighting, the inner confusion, the reach for outside confirmation. Soften the brow, let the eyes settle, and ask, what is reality showing me right now? And can I stay with myself as I see it? If you are inside the chalice path, bring one or two sentences into the community, naming where the old override still fired. And if something in this landed, if you felt even a flicker of recognition that this season has a shape and that you are not simply lost inside it, I made you a free map, and it's called Which Chapter of the Midlife Passage Are You In? Locate yourself on that timeline, read the guiding question for that chapter, and find yourself in the question. It's linked to wherever this transmission reaches you. Thank you for being here for the Venus Cycle Midlife's Roadmap. Bring these conversations into your body, your journal, your conversations, and the living practice of your week. May this support you as you move through your process. And may you trust the wisdom already moving through your body, your vision, and your becoming.